Welcome to the Fire Away Podcast. The Fire Away Podcast. Oh yeah. Here we go. Let's do it.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Fire Away Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Meyer. I'm here with Matt Williams. What's going on, Matt?
Hey, how are you?
Hey, don't forget to check us out on Instagram, Fire_Away Podcast, and catch up all episodes anywhere you get your podcast. We're on all major platforms. And we're here again today with another first-timer, Mr. Frank Chenoweth. What's going on, Frank? How are you today?
Morning, how you guys doing?
Doing good, man. So we were talking a little bit off mic, just trying to get to warm up a little bit. We're without Mr. Anders today, so we got some notes here. I know one of the things we just celebrated recently was 40 years.
40
right?
years, yep.
What month was that? It was not that long ago.
October.
We did 40 years. So
Yeah.
I'm 43.
Just started.
I just wanted to put that out there. So yeah,
I think I've been working here for more than a lot of the people here have been alive. So
Yep.
What's that feel like? Is it feel like an accomplishment? Because I feel like it should.
yeah, when I saw it coming around, I was like, 40 years is a long time. But I mean, obviously, when you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like anything because it's just having it, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, it definitely you don't see that very often. So
No, not at all. I mean, I felt 10 was this past summer, and I was like, wow, 10 years felt like something. So we have 40.
I remember when I first started, I'm thinking, I was talking to Miss Cindy, and I forget how long she had been here when I first started. I'm like, man, that was a long time. And like you said, I'm sitting here thinking, I can't wait to get 10 years. That seems forever away. But
how long is it for you now?
September will be 19, so I'm getting close to that 20. So.
Which is, I won't be alive to be here 40. There's no way 30 more years. 73. If I'm still here at 73, something went wrong in my life.
Frank was my first boss when I came here.
Okay. Oh, so Frank, right now, not to cut you off, you're the technical director. So what were you back then when you were Matt's boss?
I was a service manager.
Service manager.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I still remember.
So yeah,
I had just graduated high school, and my buddy said, you should do fire protection. And whole story back and forth with that. And I said, okay. So if I need an application or anything, let me talk to Frank. And I was at my first job out of high school. I was building trusses, and I got this phone call from Frank. He's like, I hear you want to work here. I said, yeah. All right. When do you want to start? I was like, do I need an application or anything? No, you're going to be John's helper. We already got that figured out. Okay. I'll start next week then. So things are a lot different now.
A little bit more formal now, right?
just a little bit. Yeah, but I was thinking about it the other day. So Matt Williams, Matt Myers, Matt Benfield, hired all them. There's several, Janet Griffin.
A pretty good track record there, Frank.
Yeah, I feel like. Oh, and Kenny Radke.
Okay.
All right, they're your home runs.
Jim Colgan.
Jim Colgan?
They're your home runs. Let's talk about your strikeouts.
They're not here anymore. There were a couple of them that I don't want to talk about, but
I get it.
I just remember walking in when building one, back by the extinguisher shop and stuff. Frank's office was tucked back in one of those hallways, and you go walking in there, and this guy had so many manuals on his desk. Like the top of the desk was caving down in. I'm like, that thing's gonna fall over any minute
true.
now.
So I know, and you do a lot of the legal stuff here at Fireline. So what all does that involve? How does one start with that? How do you go from service manager to start doing all that and then becoming the technical director? How does it morph into that?
it was one of those things where they needed. We had a lawsuit or insurance claim, whatever you want to call it. Generally, it's just a liability claim for the insurance company. Everybody calls it a lawsuit, but it's really the insurance company just trying to get their money back from something they paid out to the customer. And they said, they needed a technical representative for Fireline to talk to the lawyers from the insurance company. So they're like, "Can you do it?" And I'm like, "Well, sure, yeah. I know a lot about this stuff." So yeah, I sit down at my very first deposition, And I'm just thinking it's going to be like us talking right now. You know, they're just going to be asking me questions and stuff like that. And this guy starts grilling me with all the ins and outs of the codes and this and that. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is a lot more than I expected.
I gotta go home and study.
Hence all the manuals.
And I'm like, just, I'm sweating and I'm like, this is, but, you know, after all was said and done, you know, we did okay with the case. And after I was done with everything, he said, the lawyer comes up and talks to me. He said, man, you did really good there. I'm like, really? Because I didn't feel like it. He's like, no, you kept your composure. You didn't go off your track, you know, and all this other stuff. And they're like, you know, you did well. We probably should use you on, you know, stuff like this. And that's
it.
Pretty much how it started.
Nailed the interview.
Yep. And I don't know that I'm happy about it, but here we are.
But you're really good at it.
Yeah. And that's sometimes, you don't want to be good at something. But
so how long ago was that? When did that start? How long have you been doing that?
That's been, it's only been a few, less than 10 years that started.
Were you doing a little bit of it though when you were the service manager?
Well, I never did. My first deposition was, you know, that whenever that was a few years ago. But you know, prior to that, I was just, you know, just the knowledge of the codes, things like that. And then one of the other things was when, you know, when I was a service manager, I was doing everything, you know, so I was trying to maintain, you know, all the, you know, make sure all the schedules were right and everything else. And then just make sure we were doing what we were supposed to be doing and not doing things that weren't to code, and, you know, making sure we did, when the guys were out there to do their jobs, they did what they were supposed to be doing.
Almost like a compliance manager in a way.
Right. So that was, you know, that was half of my job was that. And then the other half of my job was actually scheduling and doing all the other stuff. And then, you know, when Anna took over, she's like, you got too much going on here. You know, we need to split things up. So that's when they brought Karen she was my assistant at the time, Karen Cobb. So they brought her to be the service manager. And then they started the technical director job for me. And, I definitely would much rather do this than, you know, manage, you know, at the time.
I was going to say it was a lot smaller then.
Oh yeah. And a lot smaller, but you know, when I started, there were like 5 or 6 of us.
And then when you came here, you were a technician. You weren't a manager, right?
Yeah. I got hired by a gentleman, Ed Burkhart, who was the service manager at the time, and you know, worked in the service department, you know, out there testing, inspecting, doing the whole thing. Got pretty good at the troubleshooting side, so they like to put me on all the trouble calls, and did all that. And then Ed was the one that started the Leesburg office. He actually, they bought ABC Fire Protection, I think was the name of the company, little place, and he moved down to Leesburg, Virginia, and Winchester, actually, I think is where he actually moved. And he started doing that down there, and that's when I came on to be the service manager, and filled it in.
Now, did you manage guys out of Lancaster also?
Kind of remotely,
okay.
Because when they bought Lancaster, you know, years after that. Lancaster, Lancaster.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's another episode we could have, right? Just pronounce it.
If you've listened in the past, we really get on Matt about his BS. He's got a lot of it.
We'll talk about chicken pot pies.
Exactly. See, he knows.
And shoe fly pie. And
fake news. Like that shoe fly pie, I stand by that.
That's good stuff.
So I mean, I 40 years. We've had Steve on the episode. We've had Cindy on the show. I'm sorry, and we kind of ask them the same things, right? Like 40 years is a long time. It's a lifetime for most people here, like you were saying. So you have definitely seen the change, right? As it changed, and it continues to change. And we'll talk a little bit about the most recent change. But what besides the most recent one, what's the biggest change that you've seen over the last 40 years? I mean, I obviously the size and that stuff kind of been organic, but
yeah. So a couple of things is, you know, when I started, John Waters was still running the company. He was kind of on his way to, being part-time and on his way out. But John ran the company, and then, Steve took over shortly after I started working here.
Yep.
But John was still coming in, part-time and, making sure everybody had their, kept their pencils until they were an inch long and stuff like that. He was collecting paper clips. He was just a penny pincher, but not in like a Scrooge kind of way.
Yeah.
But, so just the change from John Waters to Steve Waters, and then of course, the change to Anna, those are big changes. But, the technology changes. I mean,
that's a big one. I've always
paper tickets and paper reports and just stacks and stacks of tickets. You get a month's worth of tickets, and it was like a foot high.
Yeah.
And then you had to sit there and go through them, sort them manually by zip code or whatever, and try to get them the stacks of the different types, and then the schedule book was a binder,
the big black binder.
Yep.
And then you would get your tickets, and then if you're doing inspections, you go back to the files and pull the old inspections out and take that file with you. And
So what was your thought when they said, hey, all this stuff right here is about to be on this 5-inch screen?
I'm like, there is no way we're keeping track of this. What are we going to do with these giant file cabinets of stuff? We know exactly where everything is.
Yep.
Of course, then you open the file cabinet, you can't find the stuff. So it's like, now you
stuck in some tech's truck.
Under the seat, coffee stains.
I mean, you were here for the computers in general as they grew and how everything went online. And like you said, instead of a file cabinet, now it's a file on your computer. And
and we didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
I mean, when we first started, we had
carrier pigeons.
Yeah, carrier pigeons. Somebody had to drive to somewhere, and I always talk about the evolution of being on call. Like when I became service manager, we didn't have on call like on call technicians. I would get all the calls and then just call around to the guys that I knew would answer the phone, and then
did you guys have pagers or anything?
Well, we started out with pagers that were just a block that made a noise, and that was it. Just a beeper, and that's people call them beepers, and that's what they were back then. That's all it was and then we upgraded to ones that had a display.
Just so you could see, hey,
but
call me at on call or whatever the code was.
It was just a phone number.
Okay.
So it was one line. It was just you could put in a phone number, and then you could like put in.
Oh, I remember deciphering codes with girls back in the 90s. I remember. Was it 4 letters, 3 words, 1 meaning? 431 was I love you.
143.
143. I don't know. It was something like that.
1 I 4 love you. 143.
He knows.
92Q love line. You guys remember that? Anybody? No. You're not a Baltimore guy, so you wouldn't remember.
Well, I do know 92Q, but I never.
So where are you from? There? Are you from up Lancaster?
Lancaster?
Or were you just saying it because he said it
Lancaster.
like that?
No, it is Lancaster.
He just knows how to say it the
I
right
know.
way.
So where are you from? Are you from?
I'm from Pasadena.
Okay.
Dirty Dina.
Yep, I've lived in 2 houses my entire life.
No kidding.
Yep.
Man, you are just a committee. You
I just
you like and you stay there, man.
I'm boring is really what it is. It's not commitment, it's just boring.
So but, obviously technology is probably what everybody said is the biggest change, and it's always a hesitation at first, right? Like this is never going to work, and then it just becomes the new norm. And I'm kind of feeling that way with the most recent change. Like, I don't know how this is going to work, and then I feel like as the transition begins, it's just going to become the new norm of things. I guess I want to know how what's your feeling about that in the next chapter of what's happening here.
Well, somebody asked me, basically, what's your opinion on the whole thing? I said, well, I changed from, service manager to the job I have now. So I got divorce, child support, all the things, custody, all that kind of stuff. I said, this is nothing.
Yeah. This is easy.
40 years.
That stuff.
I've seen 40 years of changes. I've seen, when Steve passed away, that was a lot more questionable than now, in my opinion.
Remember how the rumors were flying?
Oh, yeah.
They're going to sell and we're not going to have jobs.
And I'm sure it's no offense to Anna, but I'm sure everybody was like, what? Who's taking over?
Right. And Sharon's like, I don't want this.
Yep.
She, if it wasn't for Anna, it would have been gone then, because Sharon would have said, no, I'm selling the company and that's it.
Yeah.
And Anna came along and said, no, I got to do this. I got to keep this thing going. So I respect her for that, and I respect her for the decisions she's making. You know,
I said the same thing. What's your feeling? Hey, I trust Anna.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here without her. Mike didn't want to hire me 10 years ago. She vetoed that.
Oh,
She
really?
made sure I got hired, and so we laugh about it now, but it's the truth, right? So it's like, I trust her. She's seen something in me, and I feel like most people that are here that know Anna feel that way. Like, hey, look, it's going to be good for most of us anyway.
Well, my son's starting here in a week, so
there you go.
I trust.
What's he going to be doing?
He's going to be service technician.
Service tech. Okay.
Yep.
So he'll be on the 17th orientation.
Yep.
All right. I got a couple of people coming in on that one too.
He's going to be one of the boot campers, right?
Yep.
So how much longer are you staying here? You going to hit 50?
I'm going to use Imhoff's statement. I'm going to say they're going to have to jackheart me out of here.
All right.
So,
well, let me just say this.
I don't know that I'll make it to 50
In the
because I
spirit,
don't know if I'll make it to 50, but I will. I'm not. Obviously, I don't have a very physically demanding job, so I can stay here as long as they'll have me. Kind of the way I see it.
well, I'll tell you the same thing I told Steve. You don't look like you're old enough to be here for 40 years. No. Steve don't look like he's old enough to be here for 50 years. So whatever you guys are doing, keep doing
I
it.
started here when I was 11, so
Yeah, that's what it is. Well, things were different back then. I still remember. My dad got his first job at the horse track, shoveling stalls, when he was 13 because he lied and said he was 15. And then when he died, they were sending me his whatever you call it, like pension from the horse track, and I called and canceled it. And they're like, Mark Meyer, and they're giving me this birth date. And I'm like, that's not his birth date. Like, he was born on here. I got it on his birth certificate. And they're like, oh, he must have lied. I'm like, yeah, well, it was, the 50s or 60s. Of course he lied. Everybody lied about their age. And I was much like him in the fact that we both had beards by the time we were 14. So I'm sure he could pass for much older. But people did lie about their ages to get jobs back then, Frank. That wasn't that long ago, I guess. You're talking the 80s.
Now, I went to tech school and 2 years in tech school, and then I came here right out of that tech school. So
what tech school was it?
RETS, which is now Test.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
There was one across the street from where I went to high school at. Lincoln Tech was the one across the street where I went to high school.
Oh yeah.
And that was that actually was a chop shop. That got busted. they were doing chop shop out of the Lincoln Tech Technical Institute over there.
Nice.
So what's some of the craziest things you've seen? I know you've had to, like, you were joking about some stuff where we would just get like the ranting. So let's start the ranting. You've had to see some crazy wild stuff in 40 years, especially being a service manager. Does anything like jump out to you?
Couple guys that with their trucks that just sort of appeared in places, and
You're talking like accidents?
I'm talking the guy ran over a fire hydrant and parked his truck on the side of the road, and we found stuff in the truck when we went and found it because nobody knew where the guy was. He was like gone for 2 days or whatever. He got fired, obviously, but so definitely a couple of people like that.
You talk about trucks and fire hydrants. How about the flow in the fire hydrant and dumbfounded that it dented the whole side of the van?
Yeah, and that happened more than once because the one time it was a Mercedes.
Yep.
And the guy was shooting a fire hydrant. And if you've ever seen a fire hydrant open,
I'm from the city, Frank. That's how we used to swim.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So but in the city, they're shooting on the pavement, generally. But this guy was flowing a fire hydrant over at one of the, I don't know if it was Domino Sugar or one of those places, but gravel parking lot, and it shoots about 30 or 40 feet before it hits the ground, and then hits the gravel, and then bounces up onto the side of this Mercedes, and dented it and chipped the doors up and all that stuff. So that was really great that we had to paint somebody's car, and goofy stuff like that.
Yeah, it's always one of those things where you're like, I can't believe that happened, and then something else happens that one ups it every time. You're like, nothing seems to amaze me anymore.
Yeah, and just the guys that disappear, like he just doesn't show up Monday morning, and then you track him down, and he he just went off the deep end. It's like, well, you can't work here anymore. Yeah, more than one person. It was like that. It was it just
Were they
strange.
ever good employees, or they were always
The ones you never really think. It's like all of a sudden, the guy just calls out, and you maybe start seeing a little bit of pattern once you start looking back on it. It's like, oh well, he called out sick on a Monday, for a couple weeks ago, and then previous to that, maybe a month before that, he started calling out sick on Mondays, and find out he ended up having a drinking problem or whatever. But he ends up trying to wreck the truck, or somebody steals it or something like that.
Yeah. I remember when I worked for Cintas, we had a guy who was a service technician. He was coming in at I opened up the retail side at 5:30. He'd come in and load his truck up. So what they did was they restocked the first aid cabinets. He'd come in and get his supplies, and then change his uniform and go to his other job. And would work there all day, and then come back at the end of the day and turn in tickets like he was actually going out and refilling first aid kits, and he wasn't doing anything but going to his other job.
And this is why we have GPSs.
Yeah, this was way before that. This was
talk about 2000s. Technology. That's a big change.
And he'd probably gotten away with it for like 6 months before, and then you start to look back like, so he was just taking the supplies and throwing them away. And we were thinking that he was just refilling the first aid kits.
That's crazy.
And he double dipped for probably 6 months before he got caught.
That is crazy. They don't keep track of the customers weren't calling in saying, hey.
I'm sure they were, but at that point I was just a warehouse person, so I was just giving them the supplies. I would have had no idea. Like, I'm like, oh, this guy is killing it. Every day he's coming in and getting restocking stuff. And then some dumpster somewhere was sitting around with thousands of dollars of first aid stuff in it.
And he's getting paid commission on all the sales.
Yeah, he's getting commission, and he was going to his
all
other
the
job.
stuff he's throwing in a dumpster.
It's funny, though, because you talk like he does all the litigation and stuff now, but when I first started here, we had the Nextel phones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You available?
Those Nextel bricks, man.
You available?
Every time you'd be working and you hear the chirp and you hear Frank's voice, you available? And you're like, uh-oh. And he would start asking those questions, and he was like a damn cop. He knew the answer. He already knew the answer. And you're like, yeah. Were you out here flowing water on the sidewalk? Yep. It's stained.
Did you rinse it off when you were finished? I can say no.
That's a good boss, though. That's what a manager's supposed to do.
Yeah, I
knowledgeable. Like, there's not very many people out there that are as knowledgeable as him when it comes. I mean, across the board, fire alarm, sprinkler suppression.
I couldn't even count how many times I'd just reach out to Frank for stuff.
Because you're going to get the answer.
I have no idea if he's even the right person, but I know I'm going to get an answer. Or he's going to direct me in the right place for it.
It's like one time we do Estes Trucking up in is that Northeast? Way up there by the Delaware line.
Yeah.
And I went in there the first time, opened up the panel behind the receptionist desk, and it says, any questions, call Frank Chenoweth. And I'm like, yeah, he's pretty witty. Chenoweth. Frank Chenoweth.
Nice.
I just got a call from Pletcher the other day asking me about an old Ansel panel.
Yep.
And he's like, there's just light lit and it doesn't say anything. I was like, oh, you got to hold the sound switch in, and then the light will start flashing, and it'll give you a code, and there should be a printed on the inside of the panel should be a list of what the code means. He's like, I don't think so. So he sends me a picture of the panel.
He says right there.
and he's like, yeah, I don't see anything. I was like, lower right hand corner of that blurry picture is a little chart, and there's 1 through 10. He's like, oh man, I didn't even see that. And it's a panel that hadn't even been produced for 20 years.
Jeez.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh yeah, you push that button, do this. That's just how my brain works. I just that kind of stuff sticks.
Yep.
And I always want to know how something works before I mess with it. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people, you just go do something, but I want to know how it works. Yep. I want to know why it does what it does. Yep. So that way, if it doesn't work right, I can kind of figure it out backwards and say, well, this is what's going on with it.
And it's the impressive thing to me is not just fire alarm panels. I can ask you about extinguishers or sprinklers or anything, and you seem to always know the answer or know where to find the answer at, which is pretty. I mean, it's not a lot of that around anywhere. So kudos to you for all that, man. And that
For all
big,
your 10 wits.
that big brain on your head. Is your son like you? Is he a smart guy?
Yeah, he calls everybody. He calls me too. No.
He calls
No,
you for everything.
No, he's learning. He's definitely he wants to know, and I make sure I teach him. You know, so I'm not going to let him. I'm not just going to tell him how to change brakes. I'm going to explain to him how the brakes work, what that does. But you know, we do a lot of car work together. You know, those of you who don't know, I got a garage and a lift and everything else, and
That's your hobby, huh?
Yeah, I do a lot of cars. My first car I bought.
I don't know if
was
you can see this, but it says cars right here on my pad. So you know.
That's the only thing that didn't checked off yet.
Yep, we're about to talk about it.
But no, he and I would drag him into the garage when I'm doing work, whatever it might be, changing oil, and you know, while the oil is draining, I'm saying, so this is this, and this is this, and he's like rolling his eyes, and you know, I got a little chair in there, and he's just rolling around on the chair, playing on his phone, looking up and stuff like that. But over time, he's starting to
retain it,
to understand it, and then I would start just, you know, say, hey, do this, you know, and he's, you know, kind of a little test to remember what I taught him. And now his friends come to my house to work on their cars, and he's he's the guy. And every once in a while, you know, I'll be mowing the lawn or whatever, and he'll wave me down. Hey, got a question about this, you know, and I'll explain something to him or whatever, and I'll go back to my thing, and they'll finish up. But they're, you know, doing clutches and transmissions and brakes and everything else, and we just pulled a motor out of his Jeep like a month ago. We had to do a motor on his Jeep, pulled the motor out, did all this stuff, put it back together, runs fine, you know. So
how'd you get into all that? Is that just something you've always taken interest in?
I started out back in when I was like bicycles, and I had a 15 speed before anybody else, because I put something together to make a 10 speed into a 15 speed, and I would just change gear ratios on sprockets and stuff like that, and repaired my own tires, and I was the guy that, like, you know, kid chain fell off his bike or whatever, they would come to my house so I could fix it for them. They'd push their bike up to my house. But that was from my dad. My dad, you know, same thing with me. He's out there working on his car or whatever, and I would sit there and watch him, and, you know, drink iced tea and watch him work or whatever, and he would explain everything to me. So
it's pretty cool, though. I mean, that you get to pass on that your son took an interest in that, and it's something that you can pass on. And I don't know if he has a child, but likely it'll keep going, right? Because when you have an interest that's you guys are that passionate about, it's not something that seems to ever go away. I know there's like people that I know that do the same, right? It's my grandfather was the guy who everybody took his bike to fix it, and he was the car guy. And then, you know, you can just see where it gets passed down from generation to generation. And I never had an interest in it, and now I'm at an age where I'm like, damn, I wish I knew how to do this. You know, like I did have people that could show me, but you know, I just wasn't interested. So that's really neat. And then the fact that you said he's bringing his friends around, and now he's that guy, which is really cool. I could see like the cool Friday nights, just hanging out with your friends in the garage and working on cars. I could do the very basic, but there's many a times I felt stupid on this podcast, Frank, but I never felt as stupid when you told me you changed a 10 speed into a 15 speed.
And that was probably when I was 12 years old.
12. He's changing a 10 speed.
Frank got a welder for his first birthday.
I'm pretty sure I was getting tutored in math at 12 years old. That's crazy.
I was working at a body shop when I think probably when I was 13, I was working at a body shop, and I had my first car, which I still have, but the old Mustang that the guy had there, and if anybody Jimmy Keaty, who used to work here, well, Jim's body shop, that was my first job, and he had this old Mustang sitting in the corner that somebody had gotten repaired and then never came and paid him for it. And I just kept looking at it, and he's like, and at that time I was probably, 14, 15 years old or whatever, and I ended up buying it from him and fixing it up, and I pulled the motor out. I rebuilt the motor and everything on that car, and before I even had my license. So I had that car put together when I had my license.
That's what I was going to ask next. Is it like a lot of sports car stuff for you guys, or classics, or anything specific?
Anything that makes noise.
Yeah,
pretty much.
like the old muscle cars.
Yeah, my first car was a '66 Mustang, and I rebuilt that motor. And then I've had a couple Corvettes, Camaro, and now my son, he decided he wants BMW, so now he's got a BMW.
Is that different? Is it different to work on being a foreign car?
When it comes down to it, it's all the same.
It's
all the same stuff, and it's an old BMW, so it's not, yeah, we bought that and it wouldn't run, and
now it runs.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. And when he went and looked at it, the guy, he's cranking it over, and I can hear that there's nothing wrong with the motor inside. I mean, he's cranking it and not doing anything, but I'm like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this car. So my son, we got it for a pretty good price, and we bring it home and just started messing with it and trying to figure it out. So I'm explaining to him how an engine works from, we just start with nothing. I could pretty much, skip over all the parts, but I'm like, okay, so you need fuel, you need compression, you need a spark, and it should run. That's pretty much what it is. So we took the spark plugs out, we're checking for, okay, we got compression, we got this, we got that, and we got no spark. So we started looking, found out that there was a wire for a sensor that wasn't working right, and I'm tracing the wire out, and I find this big blob of stuff underneath the intake manifold, and somebody had like spliced wires together.
Oh, there you go.
So I took all this stuff, took the tape off, and twisted the wires together, and at this point it's been a week. We're messing with it, maybe 2 weeks, just off and on, hour here, hour there, whatever. And he's just like, he's getting mad. He's getting mad, and I'm like, and this kind of stuff I like, because I know it's going to work, and I just got to figure it out. So I'm like excited about it, and he's like, "Oh man!" So he's sitting in the driver's seat, and I'm saying, "Okay, crank it, do this, do that," and then I'm showing him what's going on. So he's sitting there, and he's like playing with his phone and looking all dejected, and I find this blob of wires, and I know this is the problem.
Yep.
I twist them together. I said, "All right, start it up." He's like, "What?" I said, "Start it up," and he's like, boom, 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 starts up, runs fine. So he was like, what did you do? And I was like, well, come out and look at it, So I explained everything to him and how it works and all this other stuff. But yeah, that's what I like, solving problems.
Yep.
That's what I've always done, which goes back to being the technical director. People bring me their problems, and
you get to fix them.
I get to solve it. So
hey, look. We call that a callback. What Frank wrapping it up. No, that's. Do you guys have like a project now that you're working on together? Is there something you've been working on for a while, or is it?
I've got a Camaro that I'm in the middle of. I got a motor for it that I'm going to be swapping it over and stuff like that. That's kind of a long-term project. Right now, he just bought a pickup truck, so we're probably going to be doing some body work on that, which is something he's never done, but we're gonna be cutting out panels and welding.
So it's okay. So yeah, I know you've done welding. So you do everything, not just engine work, and like you're doing body work and it all, huh? Full service Frank's Auto Shop.
I built my house. I did that whole thing.
All right, we're gonna have to wrap this up. Nice.
But yeah, pretty much. I bought a piece of property and it was just trees, and my wife, my first wife, we pull up into this piece of property, and I can see in my head the house is gonna be over here, garage is back here. I got all this stuff
garage
figured
will be
out.
bigger than the house.
And I pulled up. I pull up to the property. I said, okay, so this is where it's gonna. And she's like looking at me like, what are you talking about? It's just trees. And it's a hill with trees on it, a bunch of old pine trees and a couple oaks and stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, the house can be back in here in the corner. I'm all excited about it. She's like, huh? And yeah, same thing with the current wife. It's, I'm like, well, here's what we're going to do. She's like, draw me a picture. So she can't envision it, but
I'm with her.
But she's like, draw me a picture. So now she comes to me, I want to do this. And she's got a little picture. and like a scale model
Yep.
of what she wants done. So she brings it to me. I want this. I was
Yep.
like, okay, I can make that.
I'm a very amateur woodworker. I find it very fun. My wife tries to do things, but she really overestimates my skill level. And I've definitely gotten better the more I do it. It's enjoyable. It's relaxing to me. But I'm with her in the fact that like somebody will show me plans or blueprints, and my brain just goes, nope. Like it doesn't function. It just overloads too quick. Like where you're saying, like I can picture all this. I've been on work sites and job sites where people were like, yeah, like, so this is going to be here. And I'm like, just show me when it's done. Like, I can't, my brain doesn't work like that. And I think really it is. Like, I don't know if that's something you can learn. I think it's just the way your brain is. Like you said, when you see a problem, it's immediately how to fix it, right? And it's just crazy that you could see all that and built your house in your garage. How long did that take? How long
2
did it
years.
take to build a house? 2 years?
Yeah, it took me 2 years, and it was, I mean, if you subcontract everything out, it's probably you can probably get a house, out of the ground and built in like 6 months. But I did like the plumbing and the electric, and I had somebody frame it, and then I did all the flooring. I set all the cabinets, did all that myself, so it took me a lot longer. But yeah, it was about 2 years from the time I started clearing the lot till they
Still, that doesn't seem bad. It doesn't for
not
for
at
you
all.
doing it all. Yeah.
But it's nice having that. Like it drives my wife nuts now, in a good way. But like something will happen, like we have a leak in this pipe or this is broken, and I hate calling people to do something that I know I can do.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't want to pay for that if I can do it myself. It might take a little bit longer, but I'll get it done. And it's just I've always liked working with my hands and being mechanical.
I put a new toilet in 2 weeks ago, and look, I peacocked around my house for a good 12 hours. And nobody could tell me nothing. First time I put a toilet in. And right now, we're 2 weeks in. Knock on wood, it's still working all right. No leaks.
Well, I know that I'm going to do my job right, and I know that if it's wrong, it's a lifetime warranty.
Yep.
And you hire somebody, and they don't care.
They
a
don't.
lot of contractors
It's a
they
job.
bring out there, and there's muddy footprints all over your floor and all this other stuff, and I'm like,
I had a guy help me do my bathroom, and his line was, "I can't see it from my house." I'm like, "Well, I can. It is my house."
yeah, exactly.
And he was an uncle. So,
It's just crazy. Like I saw on Facebook yesterday, some every town now has their Facebook page, and some lady put out, she needs her hot water heater replaced, and she's like, the contractor wants $5,000. I'm thinking, for what? Like, you're getting ripped off. Go buy the thing and I'll put it in. Like, yeah, people just trying to get that quick dollar.
yeah, we've done the same. Like we put new water heaters in, and just like I'll YouTube it. I'll figure this out myself before I'm paying somebody to come do it. I do need to do a kitchen, and I keep telling my wife we're going to pay somebody.
Frank.
Like Frank, what are you doing this summer?
I do have a buddy though.
Yeah. We've gotten estimates, and some are crazy, and some are like, get what you pay for. I'm not paying that.
Yep.
That to me is I know that's above my skill level, and I really feel like it's going to take me 3 times as longer as it would if I just paid somebody, and it'll cost me 3 times as more, I'm sure too. But
Yeah,
I'm not
and
one of them.
you got to balance that out too. It's like how long can you leave something
A kitchen,
not
it's a kitchen,
done?
right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so-
not, it was like having like. Thank God when we were doing our bathroom, we had a second bathroom that you could use, but we don't have a second kitchen.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's
and
like-
when I did my basement, I had the house done, but my basement was unfinished, and I just finished that up like last year, and did the floor and everything else, and it just was forever, but just a little bit at a time, and of course the mess and going up and down and stuff like that, but it was a basement, but now it's my office. I moved down to there, and now it's where I work out of when I'm working from home.
stacks of manuals everywhere.
Nope, it's all electronic now.
It's all
It's all on my computer.
It's just not the same, right? You gotta have like your little library with all your old school manuals.
Well, if you look at the manuals on PZ or on SharePoint, you'll see a lot of them are scanned, and they're my manuals. You'll see my
Frank wrote
handwriting.
them all.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't write them, but my notes are on the pages of a lot of those manuals, and have been saved because we had a project with Nancy Larson, right as she was getting ready to retire or whatever. That was one of her projects, was scanning all my manuals, and it was a lot of them. That was before. Some of the manuals are old enough where there's no PDFs. Like now, everybody's manuals on PDF, but there's a lot of older manuals that just weren't that
Didn't
way.
you also do something with NFPA or NICET?
So, both actually. So,
So he is writing the manuals.
well, I did. I was involved with writing the NICET fire alarm test.
Okay.
So back when I first started doing NICET stuff, it was design. So the fire alarm, like I have a level 4 NICET in fire alarm design. But then they started doing the test and inspect. And so they called people, or they, asked people to come in for technical help with creating the actual test. So I came in and we developed the first test and inspect for fire alarm.
That's awesome.
So that was pretty cool. And then for NFPA, I sit on the NFPA technical committee for fire alarm test and inspect. The chapter 14 in NFPA 72 is test and inspect, and I'm on the technical committee for that. And that was one of those things that Anna sends me an email. Hey, you want to get on the technical committee? I'm like, sure. And it was through FSSA, which is one of our associations, and I was going to be an alternate. So, sure, alternate means, if the main guy can't do it, then you might have to go to meetings, and because they do them all over the country. So, the first year I'm the alternate, and then the primary guy decides he's going to go become a missionary. And suddenly I'm the primary. So it was like, I'll just be an alternate. Just, I'll sit on the meetings and stuff like that, but won't be any responsibility. And then, immediately the guy decides he's going to go off, and they bump me up to primary. So
It's a common theme, Frank. You're just in the right place.
The right place, the right time, or wrong, or however you want to look at it. Yeah, people die and people move, and I keep moving up. So,
Well, Frank, you're a very impressive person, man. I think we all agree on that. Just from your hobbies to what you do here at Fireline, 40 years is one hell of an accomplishment. I hope you're here, as long as you want to be here. And I certainly appreciate all the help you've given me in the past, and will continue to give me. I'm sure I'm going to be knocking on your door or calling you or texting you about something. It seems that, it always never fails, and I appreciate you always being the go-to guy and willing to help out everybody.
Yeah, I enjoy. If I can help somebody out and make their day easier, and hopefully they remember what I tell them. That's one of the big things. It's like, if I can teach you something, and you remember it next time, that's all better.
Yep, you're a problem solver for sure, man, and a master at it. So one question we like to ask everybody before we wrap up the show is, what would Frank Chenoweth today, 40 years later, say to Frank coming in the door day one? Advice, thoughts, anything you could say to that person, what would you say to him?
That's a good question. I would say, basically what I've been doing. If somebody has a question, take time to answer it, and don't be afraid to ask a question. So if you don't know something, instead of trying to fake it to make it, ask somebody, and hopefully you get the right person who's not going to blow you off. And ask questions and learn stuff, and be the guy that people ask you questions later on.
Yeah, and that's exactly what's happened. Well, thanks, Frank. I appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man. Thank you for coming on the show. It's definitely been great having you on here.
Thanks for having me.
Yep. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Remember, check us out on Instagram, fire_away podcast, and catch up with all of your episodes anywhere you get your podcasts. We're on all major platforms. We'll talk to you next time.
See you.